What's up, writers? Today we are going to go further into how we add evidence that's relevant to our point to make sure that it really bolsters that claim. Let's check it out. Writers, in the past, you've learned in, say, your literary essay unit last year in 6th grade, and in other units before, about research and essay writing, that when you add information, say like quotes, there are some different things that we need to do when we add those in. So right now, talk to your partners at your desk group. What do you need to do? Maybe 3 things you can name when you add text evidence to your writing. 3 things you can do to set it up. Pause the video. So I hope that when you talked, you all mentioned that you know how to lead into some text evidence. In other words, you kind of introduce it. You tell us about this piece of evidence. You can also tuck in some background information so that we have context for this text evidence. Maybe you even learned how to cite examples, like mentioning what the page number was or including in your description where the source was you got this information from. Maybe most important was, I know that in the past you've learned to explain why the source and text evidence matter. So you should have learned to do those things. Cool. The reality though is we just wrote a flash draft. And have you done those things in that flash draft? I want you to take a moment to skim through that essay of yours that you wrote. That essay about competitive sports for kids, and decide, what of these things have you done when mentioning evidence? After a minute of skimming through your paper, talk to your partner. What are the things that you're not doing right now out of those techniques that we mentioned? So I want to make sure that before we move on to any new stuff, you don't forget the stuff that you've already learned, that we don't slide back to a place that we were in the past. And so hopefully, if you haven't done those things, you can do that, because I've got a tip for you that is going to help us decide how this evidence gets incorporated into our paper. And that's that we don't just add evidence based upon the order that we found it, we add it based upon its importance. So we rank it. And that's what I want you to realize. We rank evidence and decide how it needs to be fitted, how it fits into our paper based upon how important it is. So just like in a lot of ways in life, we can get things that sort of get the job done. But the best things that we could find to help ourselves, whether it be if we're sick or if our jump shot's off, is not to get good enough help. We want to get the right help. And in our papers, we need the right kind of evidence, the precise evidence that will help us. And so let's take a look at this claim here. Competitive sports put too much pressure on the kids who play them. So obviously, the claim really is that kids shouldn't be playing competitive sports, and the reason then is that they put too much pressure on kids. I'm going to show you 3 pieces of evidence that this writer is considering so we can decide what piece of evidence best fits this reason that is supporting the claim of competitive sports are not meant for kids. Each piece of evidence is like adding that perfect seasoning then. So it's like, bam, I throw it in there and it really makes my claim and my reasons pop. It makes them explode. So there are 3 pieces of evidence that you have your groups now, and you're going to take a look at them. Along with, I'm also going to have a few questions to consider as far as how these pieces of evidence fit in to precisely fit with and support this reason. So, first of all, what work does this evidence do? Second, what aspect of my point does it support? What part of my point does it support? After I consider each one of those, then I should ask, which supports my point in the strongest way? Really packing that punch. Bam! Right? You're going to work with each other at your table groups to decide. Then, when you figured it out, and you've talked at your table groups, you're going to give me a big thumbs up in the air to let me know that you've decided, so we can talk as a class about why what piece of evidence suits this point, the point being that competitive sports put too much pressure on kids. All right, pause your video. Okay, writers, let's think about the choices that we made today. You have ideas on how to strengthen your arguments. So what are we going to do today? Do we want to add some of those techniques that we mentioned in the beginning of our lesson today? Some of those things that maybe we've learned in the past? If that's the case, maybe you really don't remember and you could be talking to your table groups about, oh, how do I do that? Or maybe you even talk to me or your teacher about how to do that. And if you forgot what we talked about in the beginning, we led into quotes, we gave background information, and we explained why the quote mattered. Also, you might want to just go back to your evidence and start to rank those pieces of evidence. We've talked about ranking evidence since the very beginning and how we're going to need to have a system that allows us to do that. So we should all have that system. We should all have a way that we've taken notes that we now go, hey, best, second best, and so on. Whatever we decide to do, we are going to be adding evidence and deciding what piece of evidence best fit and bolster our opinion. We're going to add that little bit of spice, bam, to make sure we've done it correctly, to make sure we've made our point, because we want to convince our readers, and that's a hard thing to do. We need the exact right point supported with the exact right piece of evidence. And you may have to do some work to set it up or frame it. As in, you might have to do some extra writing to set that evidence up so that it really connects to the point that competitive sports put too much pressure on kids. And until I see you next time, happy writing.